Hi, seventh grade. I'm going to walk you through some painting techniques and tips that you can use and apply in your artwork. Get your paper ready, have some brushes, different sizes I recommend. Um, we'll use larger brushes to cover larger areas and medium brushes for more medium to smaller areas. And then, of course, if you have some smaller, finer brushes, those will be for adding some details. Cover your workspace with a piece of paper so that you don't spill, or if you do spill, that will absorb the water. You'll also need a cup of water and maybe some cloth or material that you can have next to you, so that if you have too much water on your brush and you just want to dab the brush on the fabric so that it absorbs that excess water, you can go ahead and do that. And of course, you will need your paint. So have your watercolor paint, and then let's get started. Oh, one last thing. Remember, first we'll just do some practice rounds before we start making our final artwork. So first explore and have some fun just experimenting with the different techniques until you get a nice feel of what you like and how to paint with the watercolor paint. And because we're using regular paper, we need to be careful not to add too much water, so it will be a little bit different than painting like with regular watercolor paper and paint. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to show you a technique where you add water to your page and then you add the paint. This is nice if you have sketchbook paper, so it's a little bit of a thicker paper than printing paper. If you have only printing paper, I don't recommend using watercolor paint because it's going to completely disintegrate your page. It's not going to get the desired effect you want. So thicker paper or watercolor paper is advisable. So you're dipping your brush into the water and you dab once, twice to remove some of the excess water because you don't want to overwork your page. And then you add the layer of water. So already I can see that I have a large surface, so my water is drying out. So I'm going to do sections on the page so we can have a nice idea. Then I dip my brush into the blue paint and I start adding the paint to the already water covered surface. If you need to add a little bit more water, that is fine, but always remember to dip your brush and then make sure you get that excess water out, especially if you're going to go in for a second round of paint. You don't want too much water. So just to show you some of the consistency here, I don't have a lot of water in my palette, right? I have the water on my paper and then a little bit on my brush just to get that color off, because I want these nice soft colors. I'm creating a background like the sky, so I don't want too harsh colors. Okay, so this section is a nice example of having a soft blue sky. Let's say you would like to add some different colors into this section. You can do that. The recommendation is let it dry. So wait for it to dry before you add the next color. So next up, I'm going to show you how you can make a gradient. So like a sunset, or maybe it's a sunrise. There are lots of tips and ideas that you could also see and find on YouTube. So I'm going to just wait a little bit, and then I'm going to add some yellow. Now, what will happen if I don't wait for my paper to dry properly or for the paint to dry properly? The yellow will mix in with the blue and it will create green. So here you will see that happened at the top because the paint wasn't dry. So I have more like a green color than a blue. So it's important to think and consider what will happen if I mix my colors. What color will it make? Because we know that the primary colors mixed together make secondary colors. So these are all things that you can explore. I want you to have fun. The next section, I'm going to add water again to my page. And then I'm going to add a different color so we can see what the different colors look like. And look what happens now. This part wasn't dry and I started trying to blend it. And this is another tip that I want to give you, is to not do that, because you can see now my paper is starting to get overworked. That's when you get that grainy look on your paper. The colors aren't soft and beautiful and bright. They lose their value. They just become dirty colors and they disintegrate the page. So you can see now that the brush is contaminated and the colors mixed. And that is why this is such an important tip, is to wait for your surface to dry and then add the next color. Now let me show you how you make a nice smooth gradient, because you're probably wondering, okay, I know the don'ts, but what do I do? So let's do that. I'm going to turn my page. Right, so again, dab, dab, once, twice. I'm going to start this time with a lighter color. Oh goodness, I spilled. So when that happens, just dab the water with your cloth or with your cotton. And now I'm going to add my yellow color first. I'm starting with my lighter color. Okay. Just add water first to the page. That definitely has a better effect for me personally. Then add the yellow. Look at the smoothness of the color. When you do that, you can really blend it nicely. Softer. Okay, now I'm going to add my next color. I'm going to start here. Okay, so this is when you're going from one color to the next to create that gradient. Don't mix too much into that. We will get to that in a bit, where I'll show you how you can smooth it out, because you don't want a block color and another block of color. We're just first going to add our colors that we want. So you kind of blend it, but you don't go into the wet areas to mix the colors just yet. Okay, so here we have our three main colors. All right. Now I wait for it to dry. And now I'm going to dip my brush again into the water when it's dry. Make sure that it's dry. Here, my page is still a little bit wet and fragile, so I'm not going to work on this area. I do want to start blending the orange into the yellow. So I'm going to, again, dab, dab, and just add a soft layer here where there's that more of a hard edge and I want that flow. I'm going to add a bit of water. Just do that, and then I'm going to blend it from yellow. I'm going to use my lighter color. And I'm going to go into that orange where I added the water. And I can also go and maybe make the top color a little bit brighter if I'd like. And then blend it into that orange. Okay, so there you can see I started with my lighter color and then I worked it into the orange, so there is a nice flow of color. And if you want to maybe add a little bit of details, just some soft, more defined lines, you can add that with your darker color. So it creates that soft blendedness, like a gradient of colors. You can play around here with some techniques. Again, be careful not to overwork your page. You just want to experiment and see what works, what doesn't. And when the section is dry, you can apply the same thing.